It's been a strange year for sure, and it's caused a lot of us, myself included, to change our mind about certain things. And this video is going to be the top 5 things that I have changed my mind about since this mask wearing began. Out of the 5, the number 5 thing that I changed my mind about, that's kind of the least surprising to me that I changed my mind, is my feelings on Dungeon Crawler. I've talked about this game a bunch, actually, for a game that I feel so frustrated with and ultimately have decided I'm never going to play again. I think I talk about it so much because I want to like it so very much, and I made a video on it. I made a couple of videos on it, actually, and in fact it's the only game to date that I ever participated in a Kickstarter on. It was for it wasn't much of a Kickstarter in the sense that it was already an established game. It was for one of the Thorn expansion pack, and I bought in as part of the Kickstarter for it because I like the game that much, and I like the game despite the strange and hard to decipher iconography, despite the inconsistent artwork, and despite some of the quests, like for the example, this one right here, where it's like almost nigh impossible to get it done, and you have to spend a ton of time building a deck that's almost just the deck for you to get some of the quests done. And well, here's a look at like all the cards. I think I own all the available content for this. There's one thing that's been released lately that I did not purchase, but I kept buying into it and hoping it would get better. And the reason why is because at heart, the card play in it, where you have your hand of cards and have your characters and you're trying to face the dungeon that is full of the enemies and the obstacles that you need to encounter, like this great gray spider, for example. The heart of that card play and of managing to deal with these types of things, using your skills, putting together combinations, it is what I love in gaming mechanics, and it's what something like Mage Knight, for example, offers in a highly developed manner and in a highly effective manner. Here, it's not just the terrible tokens, of which you can see them here. I threw those away pretty quickly, or the inconsistent card backs, which you can see there, or the inconsistent art, which you can see here. It's really the key terms. It is the almost impossibility of understanding or remembering how to play the game without constantly looking things up in a rule book that, frankly, even it just isn't that good. Even the designer, I think, says at this point, acknowledges that it's not that good. It's painful for me to admit this, but not surprising, that this is a game I will never play again. I'm trying to sell it, and whether I sell it or not, I can't invest my gaming time in something that is so frustrating and that has such potential. I keep waiting for somebody else, aside from the designer, because obviously it doesn't seem like he's going to do it, to come up with some document that helps with the game. But there's a pretty good BGG glossary that I've had since the beginning, but it just, even with that, it's like you're constantly looking words up in a dictionary or something like that. And the other aspect is, as we look at the characters here, the characters get weaker over time. They don't get stronger over time. And that, for a game called Dungeon Crawler, is just antithetical and confusing. And as such, this game is dead to me. So I've changed my mind. All right, I changed my mind about the Artemis project, and this isn't super surprising because when I formed my opinion of it, which was initially pretty negative, I hadn't played it too many times, and as you know, if you follow the channel, I don't tend to play worker placement games. My experience with worker placement games is pretty limited. I took it out again because I've been just really compelled by the art direction, and that is what drew me to the game, and also the desire to play something sci-fi. This is a turn 5, for those of you that know the game. I'm playing it solo. We are at the beginning of, this is the end of turn 5, the beginning of turn 6, and I was able in the game to get a little engine of buildings going where I could staff the biodrome. I possibly may have underpaid for some of these inadvertently, but what can I say? I did the best I could. I realized that after the fact But I think it was just possibly underpaying a little bit for this building. In any event, reconsideration of it, I think, came when I reviewed the rules and changed my strategy to focus on the fact that I was not going to be a good player at this game, and to allow myself early on to spend and buy toolkits so that I could adjust and mitigate the die rolling. And that helped me out a lot. It also, the way that the cities or the available structures came out helped me, because I was able to get this little engine where I could transfer through my synthetics complex to make the resources that I needed. And then if I had even been better at the game, I would be able to turn some of those into a victory point. I'm not able to get that far, but so that building in essence wasn't really used as much as it could have been. My enjoyment of this game now, after I initially felt so negatively toward it, is indicative of my shift toward an interest more in worker placement. And you'll see that a little bit on the channel moving forward into this year, although I'm not abandoning fantasy by any stretch of the imagination. But I think it's time to broaden my reach into gaming, and I always felt that the victory point focus of worker placement games was not to my taste, because, as I've often said, when I'm playing games, I don't actually even know the winning conditions or care about the winning conditions. It's really more about the experience of the game. But I'm realizing that with selecting the right type of worker placement game, and I'm still not totally sure what that means in terms of quote-unquote right, but the right type of game for me will allow me to still care about the victory points, because it's just the achievement of the mini goals. So for example, in this particular game, I did complete a couple of expeditions successfully. For example, this one, I was really excited to get this done, and I spent a super long amount of time deciding whether I wanted to purchase the toolkits or the energy, and I think in the end, I'm pretty sure I went with the energy, which was probably the right thing to do. And on this one, I took the sole victory point that I have here, I took from this expedition. You know, the art is helping a lot. The general theme is helping a lot for me. Interest in science fiction is something I could get behind for worker placement. I think when I thought of worker placement games in the past, for some reason I always focused on, like, I don't want to build a vineyard. I'm not even sure if whatever game I'm thinking of is a worker placement game, but that's always what came to my mind. Like, I don't want to spend my time thinking about how to make wine. I'd rather just drink the wine. This is my turnaround, changed opinion, number 4 on the list. I've been really enjoying it after really disliking it when I first purchased it and thinking, you know, I immediately put it up for sale after I first bought it, and it's probably still on my sell list, but I don't think I'm going to part with it. It is engrossing, and it does not feel like a pasted on theme. The different actions and benefits that the various workers give you do make sense if you allow yourself to think about this, for example, as a Marine, as opposed to this as a steward, and the benefits that you would get from an engineer going in somewhere, or just a settler. So I just had a massive turnaround on this game. I don't think another video needs to be made on it, but if you are thinking about worker placement, if you enjoy the art direction of this, the components are great, the dice are heavy, the cardboard is thick, the cards are nice linen finish, if any of that matters to you, and it's also a pretty small footprint. The AI works great for solo, because what it's doing is it initially goes around and it fills up some of the dice spots this way, then you go, and then it fills up the rest that way. So what happens is it really does simulate an opposing player, because some of the spots are taken up. You have to determine how much you're going to risk in terms of putting down your dice based on the number of the die that's already there. And of course, you could plan that out, and the AI could come around again in their second turn, to knock you out and ruin your plan. So that feels very thematic. or not thematic, it feels very effective and it's super easy to manage. It is, at least as of this filming, currently available. I bought it new without any issue and got it quickly and really, really, really enjoy it. After disliking it so much the first time or two I played it, I immediately tried to sell it. The first video I ever did on the channel that talked about RPGing at all was a video I did on the James Bond Assault game. This is one of my favorite war games that I've had since 1986, and I've got the original D10s with it, which are just super cool. And it came with this insert about the role-playing in Her Majesty's Secret Service 007 RPG. And indeed, this is from 1983. I think this game is from, let's see, I thought this was from 86. Well, I'll put that up on the video. In any case, the rules for this game and what I showed on that video, which you can see a link to that video up here. I actually did quite a few videos on the 007 RPG as well as some of the board games. What I did in that video was to include in here, per the rules in here, I might add, and I'll find this page here. It says right here in the rules to this war game, while some of you have bought this game looking for a standalone war game, most of you probably looked for the game as a supplement to your RPG campaign. As such, you will need some guidance in order to make the transition back and forth between the games. And then there are some notes about this, and I'm not going to go over this here because that was in my video, but that I took the cues from that, and here I guess I haven't taken this out probably almost since I did that, for the way I soloed this, because this is not a solo game. I added some RPG elements to this board game, and I took them from the James Bond 007 RPG. Here's an example of a character sheet there with this big multiplication table. It is very much of its time. It offers a lot of great stuff, but it's heavy on the charts and tables, as you might expect. In any case, I did that video, and that was really the first I did. I moved on to doing something on the fantasy trip that talked about RPGs in any way, and then I explicitly started to do more material on solo RPGing, and that the channel had really then took off a lot in that direction, with quite a lot of viewership interested in that aspect. So what is surprising to me, or what have I changed my mind about? Well, don't worry, I haven't changed my mind that I'm not going to do RPG stuff, because I love it, and it's been a surprising development. It was not my intention to do that at the outset, but that is how it came about. But what I've changed my mind about is that when I first started explicitly doing more about RPGing, I made the decision that I would present one rule set at a time. In other words, I would just keep presenting new rule sets, and that, in a sense, what I was trying to do would be to show off new rule sets and how you could solo various rule sets. And what I've changed my mind about is that approach, and what you can expect to see a bit more on the channel moving forward is that I'm going to return to certain rule sets that work well, and out of those rule sets, I'm going to create new adventures, and maybe I'll try to be more explicit about highlighting certain skills and techniques that I use to create certain aspects of solo RPGing with rule sets that you may have already seen. So that it's surprising to me. It may not be, such a big deal for the viewership of the channel, but I did want you to know that you can expect to see, for example, more maze rats, just to pick something out of the air that I used last year that worked really, really well, and to see me developing stories using RPG mechanics maybe that aren't even tied to a particular rule set. Whereas originally, I think in my mind, as I said, I felt an obligation, or I felt a desire to present as wide a range of rule sets as I could. Now, moving forward, there's still going to be new rule sets. Don't worry about that. In fact, I've got a new one coming up, Into the Odd, is going to be probably my next solo RPG video. but I'm also going to be returning to existing rule sets to develop certain themes and ideas and strategies and things and show you how I work those into my gaming. So maybe a little more explicitly teaching like that about games and mechanics and skills. And while I will be presenting new material, I will be first and foremost trying to see what I can demonstrate as a skill or a mechanic or aspect of solo RPGing, because I think there's a lot of information out there about rule sets themselves. It took me many, many years to get my hands on a copy of Magic Realm, and when I finally did, I was beyond excited. It was, for me as well as for many people, obviously, like a kind of grail game, and I did a series of videos on it. You can see the link to that playlist up here. It was something explicitly like a vlog that I was doing about my efforts to learn the game, my thoughts about the game, and my conclusions about attempting to learn and play the game, which I think in the end I played, I can't remember, I think half of one game, maybe a couple of weeks. I truly don't remember, and I haven't gone back to review those videos as we look here at some of the great evocative tiles that are here, and I'll show you the character sheets as I'm talking, because perhaps you know, I've got this as like the number 2 change of heart in this game, because I think after a lot of painful contemplation, I am going to sell this game. I sold off some of the ancillary materials that I had to it a while ago, and I'm down to just the basic rule set. I had amassed a lot of fan-made stuff and all the other rule sets and bound it up and etc., just in an effort to get out of this game what I so desperately want to get out of it. And I think, you know, this is no doubt a masterful design, but it's gotten the better of me. It really has. And maybe in a different world, in a different life, I could have somebody coming over to my house to tutor me in how to play the game and to play the game with me, and I would be able to experience this fully fledged world that I know is here. I mean, I do truly believe that. But at this point, I cannot access it, and I think that having the it's a little cheat sheet I made myself about the game, having it sitting here, knowing that there are other people in the world who really would want to play it and own it and would be able to maybe experience it, it just doesn't feel, you know, I'm not sure why I'm hanging on to it anymore, I guess. So as surprising as it is to me to say this, I'm going to be just divesting myself of it and basically giving up, because it certainly is not the kind of thing I'm going to repurchase. It's just not going to happen. So I'm giving up on Magic Realm. I mean, that's the bottom line. And I think the funny thing is that sometimes I hear people online talking about games, and just look at the side thing here. Now you can be a master or a power of magic or a powerful warrior in the magic realm. It's I wanted to be that. I really did. You know, sometimes I read things online about people who say they, for one reason or another, can't play a game, and I think like, well, you know, anybody can play any game, really. It's just a question of whether does it feel like work or play, basically. And I think for me here, no matter what, and I can't say no matter how hard I tried, because of course, you know, one can always try harder. But think no matter, you know, I tried as much as I was willing to try, which was pretty much. If you watch my video series, you'll see that I've tried as much as I'm willing to try, and I just can't get there. So my number 2 surprise from myself is that I'm just going to part ways with a grail game for me, a grail game for many, but it, you know, even just looking at this, it's like I want to be walking around the world and see this tremendous spider. I want to see this ogre in the world. I mean, that's what's so incredible about it, that I believe it feels like there's a world here and an imp here, but I just cannot access it. And so it's painful. It's painful to me. Yeah, it's just painful to me. So that is my changing of my mind number 2, which is Magic Realm and I are not meant to be. And by far the biggest surprise turnaround on this list for me is the fact that my feelings about Mage Knight are, I guess, they have changed. I mean, it almost crept up on me in a sense, because when I look back at the year, I don't think I played Mage Knight at all. Now, I do not keep track of my plays in any formal way. I don't do it online. I don't do it personally, but I do remember pretty much. And I don't remember playing Mage Knight this year. I know I took it out once. I set it up, and I just kind of felt like lackluster about moving forward once I set it up. I remember in the past, for example, this planning here, when I would take this out, and we're looking here at another video I did on it, the planning even just got me excited about the game, trying to decide what tactic I was going to choose from the very first turn. The map boards, I think, are still very compelling and exciting. It's great to do a wilderness game. It's great to feel the expanse, the coastline when you put down that first tile. I think that is very involving still to me. But there's something about the gameplay, I think, that feels too, maybe structured is the word. I don't know. I don't know if it is the cards for movement thing. I know people have talked about that, and I was never bothered by that. I just sort of view that as part of the card play in the game. And here you're seeing some fan-made material that I used in a video. I talked about how I play Mage Knight and try to make it more a little bit like an adventure game, in a sense, like Runebound extra, because of course Mage Knight is a much more complex game mechanics wise than Runebound, but these add in a little bit more specific quests, and there's a store, and I love all that added material that I have for the game, and I love the way that Mage Knight seems to accept it, even if Mage Knight players do not. But mechanically, I think it's very easy to work these into a game and to have your own abbreviated, or not abbreviated, your own adventure version of Mage Knight through use of this kind of material. But the the fact is, I haven't played it. I haven't really thought about it except to think, why am I not playing it? And the one time I got it out a while ago, I didn't have the energy. I didn't even have the energy to finish setting it up. I started taking everything out of the box, and it just fell flat for me in my mind, and I haven't thought about it or tried to take it out again in these past 12 months. I don't remember when I played it in 2019, although I'm sure I did. Typically, it was a game I would play at least twice a year, which consistently for me was sufficient. I mean, it's a lot to have out and a lot to do. Sometimes I would play it 2 times in a row, just in terms of the table space availability I have. But my number one surprise is that I just am feeling I would not trade this game, or at least right now, I would not trade this game. And it's going to be something over the next 3 or so months I'm going to attempt to get out and play again to kind of understand what has changed about in terms of my feelings about it. But I think at most I just kind of felt a weariness when I started to set it up and thought about using the cards and planning out attacks and combats and what to buy, and it just felt oppressive to me. And for me, that is my number one surprise to myself of changed opinion about a game that may change again in the future. But for right now, Mage Knight is something that frankly gathered dust all year long.